Welcome to the Get Out In It podcast, keeping our mental and physical well-being balanced by heading out into nature and doing stuff.
The activity isn't important. Walk, run, hike, bike, whatever it is, just find something you enjoy and get out in it. The point of this podcast is to show how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary levels of health and fitness.
Out here, we'll share informal, inclusive advice for anyone trying to improve their mental and physical well-being, based on our own experiences and professional knowledge from our special guests.
So let's lace up and get out in it.
No.
No. Start again. Take that from the top. That was rubbish.
And here we are. Welcome to episode 19. And what a week it has been. How are you, Maria Herring?
I'm okay. Thanks, James Bell. I'm a bit tired, but I'm okay. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. In fact, I'm better than I think I've been for many, many, many weeks.
Cool.
But we'll get into that a little bit later. First of all, so why are you so tired? Basically, what have you done this week to get out in it?
Got out in it. Well, this week has been quite a lot of getting out in it. I finished my August 10k a day challenge. That finished. We should edit in some kind of applausey track there.
Or maybe some fireworks.
Yes.
Something like that.
All of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I finished that on Thursday. Was the last day of that. So that was fun. And then on Friday, I went out for a hike with my girlfriend, Christelle. Then Saturday I had a rest day. But today, which is Sunday, was my first long run after my 10k a day challenge. And I smashed out a 20.5 kilometer hilly run in the heat.
And how did that feel after a month of doing 10k a day? 310.3 kilometers, I think, was the total.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a lot of accumulated fatigue within that. It's not something that, as a coach, either of us would recommend anybody just goes out and does. You were doing it,
Everybody should do it. Everybody should go out and run 10k a day for a month.
You're doing it as a challenge and to see, what it did to your body. What did it feel like, firstly, after you'd finished that last run? You did that last one. What did that last run feel like? What did finishing feel like? What did your rest days feel like? And what did your first run back that wasn't part of the challenge feel like? All those questions, go.
All those questions. Okay. Well, I hadn't run on the Tuesday because it was a travel day for me. I was traveling back from the UK to... where was I going? France. I was traveling back to France from the UK.
That's it. There you go.
Sorry about the weird noises. So I didn't run on that day. I was guns to run on that day. I was supposed to wake up really, really early in the morning and then do a run. But then I woke up really, really early in the morning. And I was like, fuck this shit. Didn't want to do it. So on the Wednesday, I ran 16k. And on the Thursday, my last day, I ran 14k. But then I went a little bit over because I didn't want my Garmin to say that I'd only done like 309.98k because that would have really fucked me right off. And yeah, that was okay. My last one, I did a river run because that was the first run I'd done on the first day of the challenge, and I wanted to bookend the challenge because I like that bit of symmetry. And it was nice to finish. It was nice to know that was my last 10k
I bet
run.
that I was predicting before you did this, and I was telling you, wasn't I, that I thought that second to last run was going to feel fucking horrible.
It was quite tough. Yeah.
Whereas I was predicting the last run would feel like a breeze because it was the last one and you knew it was over.
Yeah, I mean, I did both of those, the penultimate and then the ultimate run in the evening because during the day, because it's term time now, I had 2 3-hour workshops on those days. So I did my runs in the evening. Oh, yeah, the penultimate one was really awful. I got a bad stitch at like K10 coming down the hill from Mont 2 and it wouldn't go for about 2 kilometers and it was really getting on my tits. So yeah, that penultimate one felt like absolute bollocks, mate. But the last one felt really, really good. It was flat. It was along the river. It was quite toasty, but yeah, it was nice to get it finished. Yeah, and I was so fucked on Friday.
Yeah. So then you had two rest days essentially. You didn't do any running. You did a little bit of hiking on the Saturday to,
Friday.
work out on the Friday. Yeah, to work out some of that lactic acid. Then you had the Saturday off completely, with a long run today. What were those rest days feel like, and what did getting back to running in a non-challenge format feel like?
It was funny because yesterday I've been running non-stop for an entire month. No pain or niggles or injuries. Yesterday, whilst I was doing absolutely zero, my knees hurt. They're fine now because I've gone for a run. But like all day yesterday, my knees were like, ow, ow, ow. Every time I moved, I was like, what the fuck? What the
See,
fuck's going on with my super weird body?
running's good for your knees. Not running is
It,
bad for your knees.
exactly. Staying still and sitting down indoors is bad for your knees.
Indeed,
It
it
was
is.
really weird. But so I didn't go out yesterday. Did I go out yesterday? I went out for a walk, but that was it. Yeah. What I did do yesterday, which was quite cool. Like I never watch sports on TV because I don't see the point. Just go out and do the sports if you like the sports. But yesterday I did watch the UTMB World Championships.
Did you in its
Because
entirety? Did you
not the
see
not
the
the
full
whole
19
thing.
hours?
I did not.
No.
No. I just watched the last couple of hours as Jim Walmsley and the Queen came in first place. Um, because it was all over TV here, because obviously it's massive in France, the UTMB. So just had the telly on, and every now and then I'd pop downstairs and see how the runners were doing, and they were doing fucking epic work, and it was
Yes,
very impressive. It was
indeed it
very
was.
impressive.
I mean, first American to win the UTMB, and also
CCC.
Courtney Dauwalter to do the Triple Crown this year, winning
Mm,
300-mile races in a season, which is just incredible. And
it's mental, yeah.
what she continues to do within the realm of endurance and ultra running is astounding to me.
Mm. It's
And
quite
I love to
emotional
see it.
watching her. Yeah, it's quite emotional watching her run through Chamonix as she approached the finish line, because there were so many fucking people there. There were parts where I felt a little bit sorry for her, because she must have felt really fucking crowded, because like the pathway leading up to the finish line was quite narrow, and then it opened up to the big arches. But there were a couple of Ks there where she was running along a kind of single track through the because they put barriers up and stuff through Chamonix, and it was like a single track, and everybody was like sticking their arms out, and she's kind of like wading through this fucking forest of high fives and shit. And I was like, fucking hell, that must feel quite intimidating
Not when you're winning,
after.
not when no. She'd have been high as a kite at the end of that
Yeah,
race.
but like after all of that time alone in the forest and going through the mountains, and then all of a sudden there's about 50,000 billion people in your face.
She,
Mental.
I
I
mean,
got
she
I got up, I had an anxiety attack on her behalf because of the crowds. Mental.
she became the first person ever to win the UTMB Mont Blanc, the Hard Rock 100, and the Western States 100 in one year. And whoa,
That's why she's a queen.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed it is. Because you know, running one 100-mile race in a season is a big thing. Winning one 100 race season is a career defining thing. Winning three in a season is beyond comprehensible.
Yeah,
I
she's
am
amazing.
I am very impressed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that led you out the door for your run this morning, and
Yeah. It was
20K
quite
felt all right,
nice.
did it?
It did. It felt quite nice. I didn't go out as early as I should have. Because I am quite lazy first thing in the morning. I did set my watch alarm and then promptly threw my watch across the room when it went off. I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna stay asleep. So I woke up an hour and a half later than I was supposed to, which meant I left an hour and a half later than I was supposed to. And it was already getting a little bit toasty. But yeah, it was quite nice. And I did kind of when I was because like the hills and stuff around here are nothing compared to the climbs and descents of the Mont Blanc and Alpine mountain range. But it was quite nice having watched all of that live footage of Courtney and Jim kind of coming through, because like it's so cool. I'm really pleased that that whole thing is filmed and you can watch it on telly over here. It's such a long race, but there's film crews with all of the runners the whole way around, which I think
and
is
the
so
coverage
cool.
is quite good for
Mm,
that race. It's not like trying to watch an Ironman or something.
mm.
You tend to get really good coverage for the UTMB.
And it
Over
also
here
looks
you have to log on
absolutely fucking
online.
gorgeous. Yeah. No, it's on the telly over here. It's
There
massive.
you go. There
It's
you
a really
go.
big thing. So yeah, I was just I kept thinking about what it must be like to run those iconic races and stuff. So that's quite nice. And yeah, it didn't feel too long or too arduous, but I am knackered now, mind. Yeah, pretty
Well done.
fucking knackered. Yeah.
Well done, you.
Thanks. What about you this week? What have you done to get out in it, Mr.
Well,
Bale?
I have been chipping away at my rehab runs. I think we'll save the detail of that till a bit later in the let's be honest section. But for the
Okay,
moment,
doke.
I've just been doing I've been doing my rehab runs. I've been going for walks. I've been doing a bit of cross training on the bike and doing the weight work. And it's all coming together, let's just say. But I think before we drop the interview in, we need
Mm.
to give this one a bit of context, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And so a few weeks ago, we had Jamie Aarons on the podcast, who had recently broke the record for the Munroe round in Scotland with 282 Munros in the course of a month, which is up and down Everest around 15 times. Remarkable achievement, remarkable endeavor, but also, as we said at the time, a remarkable team achievement.
Mm.
She had a team of moving parts behind her, support systems in place, van drivers, people ferrying food in and out, people project managers. It was a monster, and there were some key people involved in that. So we decided when we were interviewing Jen, we asked her who some of her most important people were, and at the top of her list was her partner Andy Taylor.
Be like Andy.
Be like Andy.
Yeah.
And so we thought we would have him on to gain an insight into what it was like behind the scenes, being that van driver, being the guy that was on the ground day in, day out. And he took us through it. Now, there was some very interesting parts of this conversation, weren't there?
Yeah, it was quite fascinating. I loved the almost a dichotomy between the two
Yeah.
stories, which I think which is exactly why we wanted to have Andy on to hear his perspective, because obviously Jamie was doing the super hard stuff. She was doing the physical and mental challenge. So obviously her perspective is purely based on that. And we did want to hear from the people behind the scenes, the Wizards of Oz, who were making sure that everything was running well behind the curtain so that Jamie could complete her massive achievement. So I loved this convo purely for those wildly different perspectives. It was really, really interesting.
Exactly that. And the fact that Jamie herself said she hadn't sat down and really processed this achievement yet. They haven't sat down as a team and talked through it yet. They haven't gone through the minute details of what everyone was up to and processed it and add a beer and put it to bed, if you know what I mean. And so that was why it was quite interesting, I thought, like you say, that Jamie's version of events were one thing. And then when I put those versions of events to Andy, he was like, well, actually, it was a bit more like this and it was a bit more like that. And, there was a bit more to it here. And I
Mm.
did the most remarkable bin shot in the world at one point and nobody was there to see it.
Yeah, it was a really, really cool conversation. But instead of giving all of the fucking things away, let's just go on a hike and a chat with Andy.
Let's do it. Getting into it. This week, we are lucky enough to be joined by Andy Taylor. Andy is someone we talked about a lot a few weeks ago, as he is Jamie Aarons' partner and the core of her support team across her Munroe challenge. Andy was the van driver and logistics linchpin. I cannot imagine how stressful that period of time must have been, trying to manage all those moving parts and input from so many people. So rather than imagine, we best find out. Andy, great to have you along. How's things?
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. It's quite interesting to chat about this.
I think it's going to be really fascinating to see it from like the other perspective, because we've spoken to so many athletes who've done some incredible things. We've never spoken to any people behind the scenes. So I think talking to the Wizard of Oz is going to be really interesting.
Thank you. That's very flattering of you to say. Thank you.
I was actually, as we were interviewing Jamie a few weeks ago, what she did was amazing, and I'm jealous of that experience she had. But I was more jealous because I know my personality of what you must have been doing in the background, because I would have been so up for that, planning, driving around, making sure everybody was okay, being the logistics guy. I'm intrigued by this and what it was like on the other side of the fence. But before we kick off, I've got to ask you the first question of every podcast we do, which is, what have you done this week to get out in it?
Right. Well, I suppose because of what I do for a living, this week I have done a nature study. I've played in the woods. I've done a mountain biking session, a climbing session, a scrambling session with some easy caving in it, a seashore study. I've been canoeing on Loch Lomond for a day, and I've been gorge walking.
So basically what you're telling us is you have the best job ever.
I'm pretty lucky. Yeah. No, it's true.
So before you logged on to this interview, Maria was asking me, do you think Andy's an outdoorsy person? Well, I think we've just answered that. We just answered that in the first section of the interview.
Yeah.
Just to clarify for everybody, what is it you do for a job?
Yeah, so I'm an outdoor education instructor. I work for the local education authority, which is Glasgow. Glasgow is still lucky enough to be one of the authorities that has its own outdoor education centre where they send the young people to have an experience, hopefully.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. No, it's incredible. I mean, there's obviously lots of places that do that kind of thing. There's, lots of third sector organisations, the Outward Bound Trust, etc. Lots of them that I've previously worked for. But yeah, it's that kind of thing.
So is that just like a school holiday thing, or is it during term time as well? Schools can send their children to you?
It's more term time than holidays, I would say. So
okay,
we're part of, what we're trying to offer is an educational service. So we're part of hopefully a young person's journey through the education system, and we're sort of helping young people develop their social skills and resilience and push their comfort zones and just get them outside and all those good things.
Oh, that's amazing. And so much better than, I have quite traumatic memories of PE in the 1980s at school.
Yeah, I think we all do.
We all do, yeah. And so many times when I forgot my PE kit, like my mum forgot to put it in my bag or whatever, because we never knew what our timetable was. And we'd have to do it in our pants and vest and all the inherent humiliation that goes along with that. But to have something where it's not about sports, it's about being outdoors and just movement and all of the stuff that goes with that. Oh, that's amazing. No, I love that so hard.
And I think as well that, times have changed so much. I don't think that young people are made to do PE in their underwear anymore. I think that wouldn't take long before you'd lose your job if you were doing that.
That would be so bad, yeah.
Let's hope we move past that. Hey?
Yeah. I think society's moved on a bit.
Yeah.
So you're quite an outdoorsy person. You obviously spend a lot of time, you live in Scotland. You spend a lot of time hiking outdoors. When Jamie first came to you with the sort of the seed of this idea, what were your thoughts? How did that come about as a sort of team ambition?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I can specifically remember when she first floated the idea, but we've done it, and she maybe talked about this herself, that we've done a Munroe round ourselves previously, and she is already quite an accomplished ultra runner. So I think when she first suggested it, I didn't have any doubts in my mind for a second that she would achieve it. I just knew that if that's what she wanted to do, I've seen her set all the goals that she set in the past, from her first sort of marathon in New York all the way through to completing the Munroe round, and everything that she's done in between, which is quite formidable things.
So aside from the athletic endeavor on her side, which you had full confidence in her ability to do that, was your brain already thinking, right, there's got to be a support mechanism in place here, and how are we going to do this? And that's going to sort of fall to me to be part of that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously when your partner wants to take on a challenge like that, that's going to be sort of perhaps potentially one of their most significant life events, you're definitely going to want to be part of it, aren't you? So straight from the beginning, I was thinking, how am I going to make this work? And which obviously for me meant approaching work and getting a big chunk of time off.
Mm.
How free and easy were they with that? Was that a negotiation?
I was a bit worried about it, so I put some thought into it before I approached them. And I kind of thought, I've got to know what my bottom line is. So I thought, am I prepared to tell them to basically like it or lump it? And I think I decided I was. So if they'd disagreed to it, I'm just going to hand in my notice.
Wow.
Fair enough. That's a strong negotiating stance to take.
But it didn't come to that because I work for a local authority. What my boss actually said to me was, "Oh, we should time that perfectly." I just had an email the other day with all the sort of heads of areas, departments, and so on have been told that it's council policy if anyone wants any unpaid leave is to say yes, because the council, the local authorities see it as a saving.
Oh, that's handy.
There you go. So you absolutely smoked the timing on that one.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I suppose they could have potentially not wanted to let me. I actually took 7 weeks off because at the time I didn't know. Obviously, I wanted to. I knew Jamie was going for a fast time, but equally, if she wasn't going that pace, I didn't want to have to leave her the last 2 weeks to go back to work. So I had to know what I was asking for in the beginning. So I suppose they didn't have to let me have 7 weeks in one go, but they kindly did. They agreed to that. Did
the idea of having this big block of time off and being that logistical support behind an event like this, was it exciting?
Yeah. I guess it's a while since I've had that kind of amount of time off work. So yeah, knowing that you're going to be off work, but equally, you know that you're not exactly going off for a holiday. So the last few weeks leading up to it were fairly manic. There was a lot that, as it always happens with these kind of things, there was still a lot on the list to be organised, a lot to be done, and a lot of late nights that got later and later and later. We certainly didn't arrive at the beginning of the challenge well rested.
No, I bet you didn't.
I don't think Jamie did either. Sadly, just because there was always just too much to do, and she was working right up till the end as well, and I was working plus trying to do whatever things she wanted doing. Plus, I'm the training officer for the mountain rescue team in my area, so I had to make sure all that stuff was tied up for that period as well.
So during that period of organisation, was there any point where you were kind of wishing that you were doing the challenge as well with Jamie? Did it seem like a really exciting adventure to do?
No, absolutely not. There was no way. I was quite happy to not be putting myself through quite that extreme of a physical challenge. Absolutely. No, I was thinking the more you look into it, the more insane it seems. And the more you look at the days that she had planned, the more you were thinking, I'm so glad this isn't me. I think almost like the more insight you have, I don't know, sometimes you can, if you look at a physical challenge that you don't fully understand, like say you watch a rugby match and you've never played rugby, you can sort of be vaguely impressed by the spectacle. You watch some of the tackles, you go, oh yeah, those men will run around, chase each other, jump on each other. Then if you've ever played rugby and you've experienced a hard tackle, you have a completely different perception when you see them do it again, get up, do it again, get up, do it again. And then the commentator saying, "No, that guy weighs 110 kilos," and you're like, "Oh my god!" And you get so it's that kind of. I've got enough insight to know how extreme what Jamie was trying to do was, to actually be quite glad it wasn't me.
I think that's the thing, because when we were listening to it, the whole time I was listening to Jamie thinking, "Oh my god, that's incredible! I'd love to do something like that. Sounds epic. All of those different sports, outdoors every single day, amazing. Let's do that." But yeah, as you say, that's because I was coming at it from a completely unknown perspective. But yeah, I
think it would be if you would set it at a more sort of realistic pace. But the thing
12 months, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So you're looking at, some of the link ups that Jamie's days, as it were, can be that they're recognized classic link ups for groups of Munroes, that people would see just that one link up as like a lifetime achievement. And she would do that, then drop off her support runners that have been with her quite often in bits, pick up another group of support runners. She'd get a change of shoes and some food and off she'd go again.
It's amazing. It's remarkable. So
that's what it was like. Yeah, it was relentless.
Are you also an ultra runner? Do you do that kind of sport? What is your background in sport?
So most of the outdoor activities you'll have heard of, I've done to some extent or another over the years. So lots of mountain biking, lots of sea kayaking, a fair amount of climbing, although I do a lot less of that these days. But in the past, I've done quite a lot of climbing and mountaineering and ice climbing, a bit of sailing, quite a lot of canoeing, recently canyoning. So yeah, so stuff that's got like a technical element to it. So I would definitely say Jamie and I have a lot of overlap in the things that we're interested in, but we also have some differences. So Jamie likes the real like endurance challenges, endurance sports, and the endurance side of things. But I think she'd quite happily say herself that she doesn't like being scared, whereas I like things that have a bit more of that in it. So if we wanted to go for what we would both call a mountain bike ride, we both have a completely different idea of what a mountain bike ride is.
Yeah,
Right.
I can imagine.
Jamie would quite happily go 100-mile mountain bike ride around forest tracks, whereas for me that would be just, I'd struggle to. There's something about that kind of real endurance where your mind can wander that I'm not so interested in, and I find whereas if something's really engaging me,
so you want a single track downhill type approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I can go much further if I'm fully engaged. So if something, sea kayaking again, that is quite endurance based, but I much like it when the conditions aren't. I don't like it when it's like a mill pond. I want to get out there and be tossed around by the sea and be windswept and rained on and all that stuff, and have to actually have a few moments where you have to look deep inside of yourself and say, well, what am I going to do? Give up and cry about it, or am I going to get on with it? So
those are the moments. I love those.
So
too.
you like the danger. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm a bit more with Jamie on this one. I like the endurance.
Yeah, but it's not in a reckless way. It's in a measured way, like of thinking, yes, you want to find where the limit is, but you don't want to go past it too often. And you get very good over the years at that. All part of it for me is learning how to make those judgments, which also feeds into them being an outdoor educator. I mean, that's fundamentally the most important part of your job as a outdoor education instructor of any kind, or a guide, or whatever term you want to use, is being the person that can look at the weather forecast, look at the tides, look at whatever it is, put it all together and make a sensible plan for the day based on the people you're going with. And then when your own time, you're just doing it the same, but just for yourself.
But did you find that because of your day job as an outside educator, is that something that helped you in organising Jamie's Munroe Challenge?
Very much so. You could argue that I've been training to do that job all my life. I would also say that I don't want to take too much credit here. So taking a step back, I mean, in the much earlier phases of the planning, I wasn't involved at all. Jamie and her good friend Jenny did most of that. And they seem to be having a really nice time with it. And you know how like sometimes a committee can be too big?
Yeah.
Actually, they were going to do a better job working on it themselves. They used our good friend Joe, who's a professional, I guess in traditional terms, you'd call him a cartographer, but nowadays they're called GIS mappers.
Okay.
But that's what he does for a living. And he's an expert at, through what he does for a living, he's got access to so much more software than the average person would have, and satellite data and all kinds of things. So he could really help them with the route. And often they would have questions about the route, and he could like offer them 2 or 3 choices, and then Jamie and Jenny, or Jamie and someone else, would recce those choices. But it was very much Jamie and Jenny that built the challenge in the early days. I probably
very cool.
Came along and took credit for driving the van around through.
Well, you're the man that turned up with a branded van. So if that's if that's not trying to take credit, I don't know what it is. So at what point did your involvement start then? Because if Jamie and Jenny had put this skeleton of this thing together, they had the input from the GIS guy as well. At what point did you sort of step in and think, right, okay, these are the skills that I've got that I can bring to this, and I'm going to be useful from this point onwards?
So I think Jamie would have known what they were from the start, and to almost say that Jamie and Jenny put the skeleton of a plan together massively undersells them. Like, they are both natural planners. There's a spreadsheet. It's just called the spreadsheet. It was 100 pages long, but it was, it had, I don't know, let's say about 15 columns in it. So it had everything. It had the timings of when things were happening,
Amazing.
what the leg was, the people that were on those legs, any special bits of information for that, like if there was a gate that needed access, who you had to contact, when they had to be contacted by, who they had to be contacted by. I mean, that's not the skeleton of a plan. It was
No.
in that detail. And
Wow.
I was
I
in
love a
that plan.
spreadsheet.
And yeah, I would have been in that plan probably from relatively early on in the planning without even knowing it. And it was more like I got to a certain point and was just like, so what is it that I need to know?
So
And
you,
then
when you started to be involved, they'd already mapped out what your level of involvement was going to be and what you were going to do.
I
And
think it was a while. Jamie didn't know immediately that I was going to take the whole time off work. So I think when they'd started planning, they'd actually had an idea that they were going to have a rota of people driving the van.
Mhm.
It's even more complicated, partly as well because it's not just about being legally able to drive that size van. It's finding people that are confident to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's not everyone's cup of tea, and it certainly does take, like, again, my job has contributed to me building up that confidence because I drive like a 17-seat minibus. I have been doing for about 27 years or something. So I've got quite a lot of experience at driving those size vans, but you're going to drive them down single track roads and you're going to come in tourists coming the other way that, there's always the joke when you live in these beautiful rural areas that none of the tourists have a reverse gear in their car.
No, or want to get very close to the hedges. You're talking to a man that lives on Dartmoor.
Yeah, that's right.
Come down the middle of the lane.
That's right. They come up, head towards you, and then just stop.
Yeah.
They're in a Nissan Note or something, and they're going to expect you to do all the work. But so it had to be someone that could do that. So I think once I confirmed that I was going to be involved, it was pretty clear from the start what my job was going to be.
And that job was driving the van throughout the whole challenge eventually, once you decided to take that time off work. And Jamie gave us the impression that you were essentially the sort of, if they'd done all the pre-construction and design for the project, then you were more the on-site manager. So you were the project manager as it was taking place. You were coordinating the people that were coming in and out of to help and making sure that.
I would say that's not true. I would say Jenny was coordinating them. So, I mean, Jamie probably
I've been
still
sold up the river here. I keep saying the wrong stuff.
Jamie probably doesn't know half of how it actually worked at the moment because she was kind of busy herself.
Yeah.
So myself and Jenny just messaged backwards and forwards constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it evolved as we went along. So I think Jenny was still trying to do her day job and she found herself a bit overwhelmed by the volume of work that it was. So she got like a mini team together of planners who they were allocated certain days and stuff like that. But I was still like, Jenny was my default person when I didn't know what I was meant to be doing.
Okie doke.
Jenny always look at the spreadsheet, but she was always, it was us two between us that always would know what needed to be done next. But I would say Jenny hadn't been there, I would have been in a lot of trouble and a lot of confusion quite often.
I think that makes sense. If she was there with Jamie right from the beginning, planning all of these things, it does make sense that she was the main dudette on site, Absolutely. As it were.
Yeah, no, I mean, she'd be interesting to talk to herself because I've still not had a good chat with her about it, but she must have found that quite stressful at times. I mean, not that Jenny ever really shows stress. I mean, she just seems to take it all in a stride, but she's got a quite busy job with the Cairngorms National Park. And I think she had a big project due at work during that time as well. So she had to get that delivered on time and then still do all of Jamie's stuff. And then, of course, the problem was that Jamie's schedule changed and we didn't know when she was going to sleep, and she started pinching sleep fairly early on. So it really meant the timing of things went out the window. So the most difficult thing was constantly keeping people updated on when they were meant to be at a certain place in a certain time. And I didn't have time to do that. And, Jenny is a talented person. She's like an Oxford graduate and, talented mathematician and blah, 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 all these there aren't enough superlatives to describe how intelligent Jenny is. So she would actually learn as Jamie went along what her pace was. And then she recalculated what that pace was in different conditions. And then she programmed a spreadsheet to adjust for that so she could project into the future what the new timings were.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And she was she's operating at a level that most people wouldn't be aware of what you can do with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So in terms of interpreting how people move over terrain, so she had an average speed for Jamie on forest tracks on a bike. She had an average speed for Jamie road biking. She had an average speed for Jamie mountain biking. She had an average speed for her hiking on trail, uphill and downhill. She had an average speed for off trail, uphill and downhill. Oh, and as the challenge went on, she adapted that based on the real data. So she kept track of it and fed it back into the spreadsheet. And by like the second half of the challenge, it was usually bang on. And the only variable we couldn't control then was when Jamie would sleep and for how long. So that was the bit that would then throw a spanner in the works sometimes. Because more often than not, Jamie would choose not to sleep. And then you'd have to go, actually, everybody, you were going to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning. You now need to be there at 4 o'clock in the morning. But Jenny took all the hits on that. So I have no idea how many people that frustrated, but I suspect it was quite a few.
So
That's extraordinary.
a question I didn't ask Jamie that I kicked myself for not asking because I wondered it many times ever since we did the interview. Was there ever a time when she was on her own, or did she always have someone with her at every point of the journey?
No, she most of the time did have someone with her, but due to, again, the plan was to always have someone, but due to changes in the schedule, there ended up being a few times. I think it was only 3 Munroe summits that she did on her own. The one's near Loch, and one of them you do as a single out and back, and the other one is 2 out and back. And there were 2 other people there that were going to go into the Noidart with her. And there was some suggestion. I think Jamie was keen that I would do those ones with her, but also the girls going into Noidart needed to get some stuff that I had and get organised and things. And I just convinced Jamie that she could do those on her own perfectly fine. But I think that was the only time that she was out on her own with her headphones. But, if she'd have not turned up or something, we would have known where she was. It wasn't, I didn't. And it was during the heat wave as well. So it wasn't going to be the weather. She wasn't going to get caught out in a whiteout or get lost or something like that. It was ideal conditions, if anything. The only risk was it was a bit too hot.
What were you using to track her position? Were you some sort of GPS or GIS thing, or what?
We had 2 trackers. She had a spot tracker on her, which I think works off GPS satellites. And then we had another type of tracker that worked off the mobile phone network.
How reliable was that one?
Between them both, they were good, I think.
Yeah.
They would, like all this technology, you have to learn how to use the technology properly. And I think we had somebody that supplied those to us and then also kept the system working, who does that professionally for lots of events, who kindly supported Jamie by providing that technology for free. And the biggest problem we had was getting Jamie to wear the spot tracker where she needed to wear it, because that's always the problem with a challenge like this, is convincing the ultra runner to do the things that you want to do, and then telling you that they're going to do it like that because they don't want to. So the only times we ever had trouble was basically because the spot tracker wasn't visible to the sky properly, but just because of where it was positioned.
Okay.
Any point during those climbs or the hikes or the mountain bikes, were you scared for Jamie at any point, or were you too focused on your own job?
I was a bit worried that she was pinching too much sleep, and there is some evidence out there that that's not very good for you. I mean, there's all kinds of talk. You can scare yourself if you read too much into it, but there's potential links with free radicals and cancer and all kinds of things. Not getting enough sleep, but it's not for a very long period of time. I did have a very good chat with one of our friends, Catherine, who's a clinical psychologist, and she was like, "Well, look at it this way." She's like, any new parents are massively sleep deprived for months and months and months, first few, several years even. And they get through it. So, that was reassuring. But also, it's Jamie's choice to some extent. We did try to convince her that she needed to try and take a bit more sleep. But ultimately, I saw it as I needed to support her to do the challenge the way that she wanted to do it, because if I tried to convince her to do it a different way and then it wasn't successful, that would be on me. Whereas if she'd tried to do it her way and things didn't work out, then at least she could be completely comfortable that she'd tried it the way that she wanted to do it. deliberately tried to not be too influential about any of her decisions. I just tried to support them.
Fair enough. Yeah. And so when she was sleeping or when she was not sleeping, were you also awake and asleep with Jamie?
Yeah. So I suppose if she was out for a reasonable chunk of time, possibly an overnight, I would try and get my sleep then. Sometimes if she was having a sleep, I slept at the same time as her, but quite often if she was only sleeping for a couple of hours, I needed to sort of let her sleep, but then try and get her next stuff ready, depending what it was.
Right.
So if she was transitioning or she'd want a meal, she'd have either just had a meal and I needed to clean stuff up, get her bag ready, put whatever snacks in it she wanted. She'd usually tell me what she wanted, but all in about like 10 or 20 seconds, and then go to bed. And then I'd like just try and get all that organized and as quietly as possible.
Take us through a sort of standard day for you when during this period of time. Then what was it like from your moment of waking to your moment of going to sleep? How intense was it, and what were you spending your time doing?
Yeah, so I would say it would be quite difficult to have a standard day. I certainly missed a lot of sleep. I think there were 2 nights that I completely missed sleep on this challenge. Obviously, that's nothing compared to what Jamie did, but I always had to, like, the van always had to get somewhere, and then usually I had to get something ready. And then part of the logistics that I was doing was often delivering bikes to locations.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was doing a through route rather than an out and back, so if she needed a mountain bike to get out of a set of hills that she'd been in, I had to get that mountain bike as far from where I could get the van, like if you like the car park or the trailhead or whatever you'd call it, to where she would then pick the bike up from, then get back to the van and make sure everything was ready for when she arrived for whatever it was that she would need to do next, either sleep, eat, or get changed and carry on. Usually I would have a lot of WhatsApp messages to deal with. I mean, there was one night where I was out of phone signal for 8 hours. And when I came back, I had about 230 WhatsApp messages.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, some of them were just people sharing their photos, which was fine. So you just need to like flick through. But the problem was there'd be 1 or 2 that were people asking you, what's the updated whatever for something or other, which is where I really tried to make sure that Jenny and the group of people she got together were on top of that stuff, and I just fed back to Jenny. I was like, I'm going to miss some of those things because I'll either be out of comms or I've got too many messages, and then someone will be upset that I didn't give them enough warning they needed to get somewhere. So I tried to push that back onto what I started to call head office. and people sometimes people would send me a message, and so that they wouldn't ask me loads of questions, I'd just deliberately say that's a head office question and just send that back to them.
Nice.
just,
I think
just to like stop myself getting, because the trouble is I'll then have to be sitting somewhere and I'm meant to be taking the van to the next location, and yourself, it doesn't take long on WhatsApp or whatever, and you suddenly realize 45 minutes has gone and I don't feel like I've achieved anything in my life.
Yeah.
And also when you're that busy and you're trying to sleep when you can rather than when you actually need to, it's very difficult to get yourself to have that sleep, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, totally. And especially the first half of the challenge, or the first couple of weeks of the challenge, it was ridiculously hot. And almost one of my learning points would be in future, although we were very lucky to get offered the van that we did, to actually try and insist that it was a white van because it was that sort of silver grey colour. It was absolutely baking as soon as the sun came up.
Oh, yeah.
There were a couple of times where I could have slept and I couldn't sleep because I was literally getting hyperthermia, and I had to crawl out of the van gasping.
Oh my God. Cooking alive in a
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So especially as the way we had it configured, we had it's great with the big double bed at the top above the bikes, but then that then also meant the bed was in the top third of the van, like a little pocket of air. Like you as soon as you put your feet over the edge of the bed down into the bit where you stepped in and out of the van, you would feel the difference in temperature on your legs.
Mental.
That doesn't sound pleasant at all.
Difficult.
So was it the van? Was it decked out like a camper, or was it kind of like a standard panel van that you'd stuck a bed in the roof of?
Yeah,
It was
so it was a standard panel van that we did a bespoke build on.
okay.
The team of people we had is like a team that could take over the world. It's absolutely incredible. Like I've already told you about Jenny. I've told you about one of our friends was a clinical psychologist. One of our other friends and neighbors, Derek, runs his own business, and he makes like bespoke cabins and things like that for people, like high-end stuff and nice bits of furniture and things like that. So he's a really talented carpenter. And he's got a guy that works for him, Andy. So the two of them I spoke to. And we knew we were going to get the van at short notice, and we did. And within one single day, I took the van round to Derek's. We went to Jewson's. He persuaded Jewson's to give us all the wood we needed for free.
Wow.
Nice.
Took it all home. Then we had to pick up his tools from another job. So by the time we'd done all that, I mean, we'd met at like 7:30 in the morning or something. And by the time we'd done all that, it was already 12:30. And I was like, oh, this is just not going to happen. I was actually getting a bit worried. And then, in an afternoon, we kitted the van out to exactly what I wanted. And fair play to him as well, because I think he doesn't like, he likes to do fine work, and he doesn't like what he would consider bodging things. Like, this needs to be done tonight. And he just accepted that. And so, it was literally like bits of timber. The two of them, and they work really well together. Just throwing bits of timber out the van. It was like, Andy, where do you want this? How high does it need to be? Then he'd measure it. He'd shout out to Andy to cut it. They'd throw the bit of wood back in. The screws would go in. I mean, it was absolutely, we almost should have filmed the build. It was quite an operation.
Nice time lapse. Camera.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And 6 o'clock in the evening, we were all knackered, but we'd finished it.
Banging work.
Extraordinary. Yeah.
So throughout the period, what did you find the hardest and most stressful of being on this side of the adventure?
I suppose I've supported Jamie in races over the years, so I've learned a little bit about what you need to do to support an ultra runner, and I think that was really helpful. But always in the back of your mind, you're like, I don't want to let her down. I don't want like a mistake I make to be something that ends up costing her a load of time that ultimately puts her behind and potentially ends up with her not succeeding in her ambition. So what keeps you up sometimes is checking and double checking the schedule and making sure you haven't made a mistake. What's my next place I need to get to? How am I going to get there? How long is it going to take? Am I going to be there in time? Who else am I supposed to be meeting? What stuff will she need? Trying to guess and anticipate. Like, right, she's been wearing that pair of trainers for like the last 24 hours. They're probably, whether she's thought about that or not, they'll be due to come off her. What did I do with the last ones? Did I clean them up since she last used them? Did I pull the insoles out? Where did I put those? Has she got spare socks? They've probably got Compeed stuck inside them. I need to pull those out. It's just like a constant stream of things you need to try and think of to do to not.
You must have been knackered come the end of this, because the pressure was never off. I mean,
no, it was never off. No, it isn't.
She must have been knackered as well. But from the moment you woke up, there was something to think about until the moment you went to bed every day for an entire month.
Yeah, and I mean, not to be rude about anyone, and I'm very conscious that it could come across that way, but every time you meet somebody, no, not every time, but there's certain personality types that you meet them, and they're meeting to do a leg, but as soon as they arrive, they've got a different idea.
Yeah.
And so then, in top of all this, you have to enter into a negotiation where you're trying not to be rude, but really you're thinking, mate, can you not just stick to the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're like, why did you pick this route? Could we not do such and such? And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Dance to the tune or don't come.
So what you also need is like, you need your patients turned up to 11, and you just need to be sort of nice, and you need to sort of accept that they're invested in the process and they think they're being helpful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like Jenny and Jamie worked on the plan for 2 years. So, there were one or two times where people did genuinely know about a trail or something that we didn't know about, and that was great. But I had to actually say to people a few times, I was like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but if you change the plan and you take Jamie your way, are you prepared to look Jamie in the eye if it turns out to be a nightmare, and then she gets injured or it puts her behind, and that'll be on you. But to be that blunt a couple of times.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair enough. I mean, you three, you, Jamie, and Jenny are the professionals who've organized this entire thing.
Yeah.
So I would never go up to somebody else's challenge and go, "Oh no, I know a way that's better."
Oh no,
insane.
people do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, plenty of people that are totally there. Just tell me what to do, tell me what to take. Great, excellent. But yeah, that
has to be the approach, doesn't it? I mean, if you're
a personality trait with certain types of people. I mean, I come across it at work as well, where
absolutely,
say you've organised a day that involves several different instructors or something like that, and a group coming or something like that, and you've got like 20 minutes to give them all a briefing, and 3 or 4 of them have got an opinion about how they could do it differently.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, it's. I think you're right. It's a personality trait in some people. We had a local physio to us on last week, and she was explaining how at the moment she's getting a lot of people come in with injuries and niggles and things, and they're almost telling her what's wrong and coming in and saying, "Look, I know this and I know that, and I've got an injury, and this is how I'm going to deal with it." Often getting it very, very wrong. So I can understand, that sort of mindset and personality type that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was. I don't want to make it sound like everyone was doing that, because that's certainly not the case. But it was just another aspect to my job that I perhaps hadn't seen coming until I was in it, that would happen. Because there were plenty of people that did just turn up and basically do as they were told.
So you said Jenny was like remote project manager, and you were on the ground doing the day-to-day sort of more more day-to-day logistics. Was Jenny?
If we were business, you'd call me operations.
Yeah, absolutely. Was Jenny doing a lot of the people management, the communications with the people who were coming in and out, or was that falling to you on a day-to-day basis?
No, Jenny was doing that constantly, and the team that Jenny ended up putting together when she did find herself incredibly busy. So I think there were 4 or 5 of them. A chap called Keith, who's also a good ultra runner. Gavin, also a good ultra runner. Nora, Jamie's good friend from when she first moved to Glasgow. They were all involved in that process of trying to communicate. So there were various WhatsApp groups set up. And that evolved as we went along. Originally, the whole challenge was divided up into 4 weeks, and there was a WhatsApp group for each week, not realizing, I think, how much traffic those groups would get. So then as time went on, they broke them down into smaller chunks. But I was in all of those groups, so I would see the feeds, but I would rely on whoever was project managing on the particular day to stay on top of that communication, and I would just try and deal with that person directly.
How quickly did any of you have to say, "Look, we only need really important information in this feed right now," rather than pictures and what you're having for dinner and stuff?
Yeah, no, you're right. So we tried to. I think there were a lot of WhatsApp groups. And I think the group that had been the original first week group then got changed, and that became the group that people could put their pictures in.
Yeah, like so social group.
Yeah, exactly. So I could look through the groups and I'd know which group was the one that was most important for me to be paying attention to, because that was the one that we were in. But there'd also be the next 1 or 2 already set up, and there'd already be movement in those, because people would be asking to get an update on Jamie's expected arrival into that segment or whatever. But I would stay out of answering those questions. I'd rely on the project management team to do those, but obviously I could see those conversations. So that's why I had so much WhatsApp traffic, even though I didn't have to deal with it all. So I just had to get good at trying to find the bits that I did need to read and making sure that I did those. But very occasionally, again, some people would, break ranks and message me directly, and I'd just have to reply to them and say, I'm sorry, I just can't cope with that level of detail. You need to go back to the project manager, and follow the system that's been set up, because otherwise I'll be late to meet Jamie somewhere or something like that.
So do you know how many people were involved in the challenge?
I don't think we've done a proper count up, and we do need to. I think it's over 100.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure it's over 100, maybe 110, something like that.
That's extraordinary.
So that would be including the domestiques, as I sort of came to call them, which is the people that went on the hill with Jamie. But there were plenty of people who did things for Jamie that she never actually met. So people that drove vehicles, that drove the domestiques back to their cars, there were various people involved who got us access to various places. So we were able to get access on some of the private roads that are owned by various estates or that are controlled by Scottish and Southern Electric. They kindly agreed to let me have access to drive the van in, but that quite often meant I had to meet someone at a certain place at a certain time, get a key or a code, or just be let in and out because they didn't want to give us the key, totally understandably. So yeah, there was a large number of people that helped move Jamie along.
It's quite the feat of organisation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The weight of this must have been pressing on you, throughout the whole thing.
Yes.
The key team of organisers with the remote operations and you day to day. Have you guys sat down together and decompressed about it? And sort of, has that weight lifted slightly?
Oh, the weight's definitely lifted, but we've not had a good chat or all gone out and got drunk together or something like that yet.
That needs to happen, I think.
It does.
Yeah. Were there any moments where you really were enjoying yourself?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I had 7 weeks off work for starters.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that.
I mean, I can't stress enough what a talented group of people it was. I did joke at one point in one of the WhatsApp groups when I was watching some logistical problem get solved. I was like, this really is the group that if they decided they wanted to do something, any government in the world would need to worry about us. So much talent in this group, we can basically surmount any problem.
Ocean's 11 type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anything like the joke you want to make like that, it absolutely was. I mean, if you could make a list of all the professions or skill sets that were in that group of 110 people, it would cover just about anything you could imagine. It was incredible. It was like any problem I could think of. There was a WhatsApp group for it. We had like a medical group, and in that was every skill set from doctors, physiotherapists, nurse practitioners, chiropodists. I mean, just like anyone you could think that you could need who would have a useful opinion. Actually, one of the issues that I sort of first put to that group was that first couple of weeks. Unfortunately, Jamie got quite badly sunburnt. There were a couple of days, we live in Scotland, and even though Jamie's from California and she should know better, I'll give her the doubt that she was a little bit sleep deprived. But the teams that she was with a couple of days did not keep on top of proper good sun practices. So we then had the situation where Jamie was obviously going to be out in 22 hours a day of sunlight, still going forwards.
That makes my bald head twitch. That does.
Yeah, exactly. we needed to deal with it. So I put it to that group, got a load of good suggestions about very, very specific things about particular sunscreens and creams and ointments and what we should use if she does sleep and what to use. And obviously trying to get a physical barrier going because she couldn't recover, a hat basically or long sleeves or whatever we could get her to wear. But all alongside the fact that, you can suggest these things, but Jamie in the heat of the moment is going to do what Jamie wants to do. So you've got to work around that. But, there was, and as you already mentioned, when she got bad blisters, Nicola MacLeod, who's a army medic, done tours of Afghanistan, doctor,
wow,
really knows his stuff. I was like, if there's somebody that must know about feet, it's going to be an army medic that's, been doing that job for something like 20 years, really experienced. So I was like, Nicola, Jamie's got bad feet. That's pretty
fix it.
Message, yeah. Over to you. And then, to my complete surprise, she turned up in Dundonald with a whole load of stuff, with a kid, little young child, asleep in the car, who she'd driven through the night to meet us. Amazing. And brought all this stuff. And when
people are cool, aren't they? Eh?
Yeah,
people are good. I love it. I love it when you get these things. It brings out the very best of people and demonstrates how good people are sometimes.
that's it. And she had all this stuff. She had a big bowl. All she wanted me to do was heat her some water and get some towels. I felt like I was in one of those movies when there's a woman about to give birth and they were trying to get rid
Hot
of me.
water and towels.
Yeah. But anyway, and then she opened this little roll and she had a scalpel and some tweezers and, a load of different soaps and ointments and things. And yeah, she basically performed, I suppose, a minor surgical procedure.
Extraordinary.
Sounds like you've got a hell of a life team going on. You know what I mean? If ever you're in trouble anywhere, you've got this group of like.
That's what I mean. Yeah. It was the group could overcome anything. I joked about that several times with them all. I was like, and it's so back to your original question, which I think was I enjoying myself? I mean, there was such a buzz and such an energy of being in a group of people like that, where there just wasn't a problem. There was no such thing as a problem.
Yeah.
There was just a challenge that needed to be solved, and it would be solved. There was no question of that. And then you'd move on to the next one. And I had to keep moving on. The one thing I felt bad about sometimes when I would like just leave people and be like, sorry, mate, I've got to go. Thanks for your help. Run that's come off the hill broken. And, I'd maybe give them a Tupperware of food or something if they were lucky, and then leave them and hope that the person that was meant to be picking them up would turn up. But I would leave them by the side of the road, drive off in the van.
Bye.
So what were the absolute highlights for you? Like some of those moments that you'll look back on and think, that's embedded in my memory forever.
I don't know. Some of the surprises. My brother Tom turned up. I knew he was coming. He was obviously because he was in the spreadsheet. That wouldn't have slipped by, but he actually came up a couple of days early, and he phoned me, and it just happened to be a time I could answer the phone, and I was about to be rude to him. In fact, I think I was. I said something like, "I'm busy," because he's where I can be. And he was like, "I know. I just want to know where you are." And I was like, "He won't know where I am." And I was like, "Well, I'm at this place called Lochern." And he's like, "I know. I can see the van." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Amazing.
Like, where actually are you? I was like, "Oh,
brilliant."
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, he wanted to come up and actually meet me where I was right then and there. And I was up the hill a bit to meet Jamie. So with on a mountain bike leg. So yeah, he turned up and so things like that. And then the moments where you put a challenge to the group, I kind of really liked watching those problems get solved. I liked being part of solving some of those problems, but I liked that it genuinely felt like any problem didn't just have to be my problem. It's quite rare in life. We talk about, I don't know what your workplace is like, but different workplaces, you talk about functional teams and stuff like that, but I've never been in such a functional team as that one.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that was the buzz of that was just super, super cool.
So do you reckon all of you guys will get together for Jamie's next adventure?
I think we would like to.
Next adventure. What are you going to do next?
Well, I don't know. I think we would like to, if it's a challenge that would accommodate that. So I suppose one of the parameters might need to be that it's a challenge in this country.
Right.
Jack has done challenges in other countries, and obviously she's got links to other countries, but the further away they are, the more difficult it is to expect people to be able to meet those costs to get there or whatever. But one of the great things about it being a UK-based challenge was that people could just jump in their car and get there. So yeah, I think it's hard to imagine what could top the FKT for the Munroes. Well, I'll see what she comes up with. I'm sure there'll be something, but yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
And it's also that period of time. So I've supported Jamie on other races and had help with her before, but often the races are around 24 hours. She's done some that are like 4 or 5 days, but to have one that's basically a whole month like that, full on going at it all the time, it was pretty special.
Yeah,
I think it's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable, and I'm in awe of what she achieved. But I'm really jealous of the team that you guys put together and being part of that, because that's my jam. I love the sort of project management, helping people do things. I'm fascinated by it. So what in the short term, now that you're back at work, I assume, what plans have you got? Have you got anything on the agenda that you're going to be going and having a bit of a blowout with?
Not really. I mean, I've got a little bit of time off in September. I'll hopefully go on a sea kayak trip or something like that.
Cool.
But I
Nice.
have something specific in mind. But you know, the beauty of sea kayaking is you can take all your camping kit and your food, and you can go somewhere. So it will be weather dependent, and I'll look for a window and go for it. So yeah, that would be in the short term what I might be thinking about doing.
So
Good
do you
work.
do you also do events as well? Do you race as well?
No, not really. I have done a couple of the sort of traditional mountain marathons in the past. So Jamie and I did those together. So things like what used to be called the LAM, the Low Alpine Mountain Marathon. Although I know that's now finished. The the original mountain marathon, we've done a few of those. We've done the Morn Mountain Marathon. So yeah, over the years we've done a few of those, and that's when Jamie was much newer to this country and the UK kind of terrain and things like that. So I think that was all part of creating the monster. Um,
Lovely.
yeah, that we joke about now about how she used to say, "Oh, I don't know how you can run down that so fast. I can't keep up with you." All those kind of things, and now it's completely the other way around.
Love
Nice.
that.
Or I used to carry like 3/4 of the stuff. The first one she did, she'd carry like a quarter, and then the most recent one she probably carried 2/3, and I carried 1/3. It's quite humbling as a man to be put in your place like that. I'm sure there'll
Oh,
be a
that's
lot of women listening to this that'll be quite pleased to hear that. But
Yes.
I'm not ashamed to admit it.
Yeah, I
No,
can speak for
absolutely not.
I can speak for
My,
the entire sisterhood and say yes. Yes, we are.
yeah, my partner is tougher than me. I'm quite happy to say that.
I love
Get
that.
that out there.
As is mine. As is mine.
Ah,
So
I lo-
I love the branded hoodie, by the way. I'm a big fan of
yes.
that. Good work.
Yeah,
Good to see you
I've been on
representing.
brand ever since. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I've been on brand ever since.
I'm not surprised. It's quite the it's quite the challenge to be proud of. Like I can't even imagine what it must be like to see your partner achieve something so remarkable. Like the pride must just make your head blow up.
Yeah, it does.
Surely I've made you feel like that many, many times.
Of
Many
course.
times,
Yeah, of
countless
course. I
times.
mean, yeah. Of
Absolutely.
course. What am I
I mean,
saying?
no, absolutely. It is true. It is incredible. That you almost sort of take it for granted that she will succeed when she picks one of these challenges now. You know, I guess perhaps for her biggest setback on the journey that she's been on to becoming an ultra runner was the TDG. That was something that she had a battle with, but that's kind of what Jamie tends to do. That she finds a challenge, she works at it. If it doesn't work out, she tries again. Doesn't work out, she tries again. And when she's done it to the level that she's satisfied with, then she kind of moves on to the next thing. So for quite a few years, it was the West Highland Way. You know, she's come first, second, and third at that. Even though the year she came second was her PB, you know, she was eventually convinced that I can't do it any quicker than that. 18 and a half hours is my max. So she moved on from that. But yeah, the TDG, the first year, I'm saying that like people know what it is. I should explain. The Tour de Géant is a big race in the Italian Alps. It's basically a lap of the Aosta Valley.
Amazing.
It's something like
Gorgeous race.
3 kilometers, and I think it ends up being 30,000 meters or 100,000 feet of ascent, which is actually more than it says in whatever you would call it, the publicity material. But off the GPX tracks, that's what it turns out to be. So and it's non-stop. So she's done other multi-day events, but you do a certain amount every day, and then you stop and you probably sleep in a hotel or you camp or something overnight, and then you get up the next day and start again. But on that challenge, the clock is continuously running, so it is one of those challenges where managing your sleep and is all part of it. And I think that's when she realised that compared to other athletes undertaking similar challenges, she's able to do better than the average person on less sleep.
Amazing.
But the first year she entered that race, she pulled a muscle of some kind, maybe a quad or something like that. Something in her thigh certainly was niggling her, and she had to slow right down. So she still put in a decent performance. I think she was in the top 70 or 80 people still out of about 400. But that wasn't good enough for her because she knew she could do it quicker than that. And the second time she entered it, she gave herself a case of rhabdomyolysis, which is quite a serious medical condition, and she ended up hospitalized for 5 days. So I had to fly out to Italy to meet her in hospital. Then, so obviously she wasn't satisfied with that. And then the third go at it, she came second equal with another woman. They actually, in the last sort of closing kilometers, they decided that rather than bury each other, they'd cross the line together.
Oh,
amazing. That is amazing.
So she came second at that, and after that, she told me then, I'm done with that now. I'm happy with that. So that's kind of how challenges have gone for her. So I think she's happy with the Munroes. I don't think she has a plan to do a rerun at it, having got the record. I think if she hadn't got the record, we might have been having a completely different conversation right now.
Yeah.
It's my past experience.
Now that it's done and you're looking back on it, is there anything that, from your perspective, you'd have done differently, other than the different coloured van?
Yeah. So all the things I could say would be fairly trivial like that. I mean, I think as a team, we did a fantastic job of not letting Jamie down, being in the right place at the right time, moving the things forward, reacting to things that happened. I mean, not to be rude to her, but she did make it extremely difficult for the planning team by constantly not sticking to the schedule in terms of sleep, etc. So those guys worked incredibly hard to accommodate her needs. That means all the domestiques, all the people coming out to run with Jamie, agreed to change their plans. Their own they all have their own lives, their own kids, their own whatever it is, jobs. But everybody came together and made it work. So that's, full credit to those people. I mean, the one thing I would personally do is I would have a lot less stuff in the van, and I didn't have much say in that because building right up to the last few days, there were a lot of things happening. As I said, mountain rescue to plan, work things to tie off. I was doing all the bike preparation, and there were still things arriving in the mail to do with that, and I left all the van packing to other people. But we basically had so much crap in that van not use.
And that'll be stuff you didn't realize you didn't need until you didn't need it, I suppose.
You could say that, yeah. I do take a view that I would find things I was like, oh my God, what did we bring this for? Do you know what I mean? But the problem, it did genuinely cause me problems to do my job. So when we had when I worked out the van design with Derek, I basically had a continuation of the bed down sort of one side, which was the table, which was at the right height for me to work at. And in my head, that was the cooking table. Once I'd finished packing the van, there was no cooking table. It was like rammed to the roof with extra boxes and bags and stuff that I had to strap in with canoe straps to stop it flying everywhere. We had more than twice as much as we needed, I would genuinely say.
Okie dokie. Yeah, okay. So there's...
I guess part of that would be to do with she could have taken a lot longer. We would have potentially needed more food. As it was, I ended up getting fresh supplies as we went around. We could have done.
Yeah, so you have like a storage area somewhere, don't you? That's got all this extra stuff if you need it, but just in case.
Yeah.
That's you can call on.
I would just say one thing we didn't really talk about much was all the bike logistics. I don't know if that was something you wanted to talk about at all.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, because Jamie said that you not only, on top of all the driving and the planning you were doing and the coordinating, you were also servicing her bikes every day.
Mechanic. Yeah.
Bike mechanic.
That's right. Yeah. So obviously I knew that would fall within my skill set from early on. So I was pretty much involved from even down to what bikes she purchased and things like that, helping sort of guide and advise her. It was my suggestion early on that when she was looking for what kind of bike she would get, that we should get a gravel bike, because although I don't really do road biking myself, I'd read quite a lot of stuff. I read quite a lot of stuff to do research on it. That a gravel bike is a kind of good, more relaxed riding position generally. It's a really good adventure type bike. So we looked into that and we found a bike that would be suitable. And then obviously planned to set up road wheels for it. So I did all the research, got got a good set of road wheels. Obviously, you can spend silly money on road wheels, but I got like a good compromise between quality and price, and then learned how to set all that up tubelessly, which I hadn't done before. Made sure everything was new so that there was the least amount of getting punctures. Replaced all the bearings. Also, her brother wanted to get her something for her birthday. Her brother's quite a keen road biker, and I suggested to him that we get Jamie a professional bike fit.
Oh, good shout.
Found the guy who, Drew Wilson, who by coincidence lives fairly close to us, but he's a 6-time Scottish road bike champion, I think.
Nice.
From a sort of previous era, but you know, we got a professional bike fit done, and he fitted aero bars and things like that. And in the last few days building up to the challenge, we took it back to him to be like tweaked and tuned to the nth degree. So I did the more like rough mechanics, and he did the absolute like icing on the cake stuff.
Nice.
She had a gravel bike with road wheels and gravel wheels, off-road wheels, but also a full sus mountain bike for the tougher environments.
Exactly. So the gravel bike, road bike concept was, to give a bit of flexibility and a faster bike to potentially use on fire road type stuff,
like fire road type things.
Just bumpy old tarmac. So sometimes you get there's country lanes. Where you said you live in Dartmoor, I'm sure you get them around where you are, where you're actually probably better on gravel wheels than road wheels. And then I had to make sure that obviously they were easy to change from one to the other, because you get things like to make sure you got exactly the right size, same size discs, and
I can imagine.
It could go wrong. You don't want to be adjusting too many things. You need the same size sprockets so that your derailleur is, things that you don't have to do loads of other adjustments.
So this was your first time using tubeless tires at all as well, was it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I learned how to do that. And then for her mountain bike, I knew that a full sus would probably pay dividends, even though she was resistant to that initially because of the cost. Because I knew that just from the amount of mountain biking I do, even if you're not really using the suspension, it just takes a load of the roughness out of what your body's going to experience. So given that she'd been tired and she would have been on the go a lot, I sort of thought that a relatively short travel trail bike would be ideal for her. So we got a 120mm, actually really expensive mountain bike that somebody was selling, a Santa Cruz. I think at retail price would be like £8,000 or something, which Jamie would never dream. But we got it at a pretty good price. Had a few things wrong with it, but not least of which it had unusual wheels on it, rare wheels, and something went wrong with the hubs. And I was right up till the last day waiting for parts to be delivered to fix those.
Yeah, when we had Jamie on, she was saying that one of the things she's considered as a change if she was to do it again would be not to have the gravel bike, but to have it set up as a road bike permanently and use the full sus a lot more for the gravel type bits. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I just feel like that's like a vindication of my thought processes, because obviously sometimes when I was trying to encourage her, what I was thinking with my knowledge, you kind of have to let the person tell you that they disagree with you, and then at the end of it they tell you that they do agree with you. So I just kind of feel like that's kind of where I was going all the way along. So quite satisfying really that I think we got that right in terms of exactly what we had with us. And the couple of times we used a gravel bike, we didn't really need to, and you could have just got away with it with not needing the gravel wheels. Having said that, I would say that the good strategy going into it would be to have 2 sets of wheels for that bike, because it's a crucial part of the challenge. So my plan had always been that if Jamie got a bad puncture or something, I could drive by and stick the gravel wheels on and just get her going again. So it's that kind of, thinking ahead to those kind of things. Like I bought
like a Tour de France wheel change.
Exactly.
There you go.
And there was a whole load of bike parts I bought from a retailer that has quite a long returns policy. So they all went in a box. So I made sure we had spare derailleurs for both bikes, chains, sprocket. I think we had 2 or 3 spare chains, loads of spare brake pads, tires, a whole load of stuff that could have potentially gone wrong. And now we're going to send most of it back. We still haven't got around to doing that, but we're meant to be sending most of it back because it's
I think arranging that piss up is top of the priority list. Sending the stuff back just after that.
That was all. That was really satisfying that nothing did go wrong with the bikes. I think if something had gone wrong with the bikes, we had what we needed. In fact, actually, sorry, I did have the one time where I had to do a full brake bleed on the side of a mountain. Did Jamie mention that?
No, no.
She literally
Exciting.
said nothing went wrong with the bikes.
Yeah. Yeah. So
She did.
there were
She said there was
challenges.
one thing that never went wrong was the bikes, because you service them every day.
Yeah, no, I did. So every time she'd come in off a bike, I would, give it a once over, clean it. We bought a mobile jet washer thing, a Bosch jet washer that, it's got a water tank on it and a battery. And you can just work that out the back of the van, give it a squish off, oil the chain, check the gears were still in. I had a bike work stand with me, so pop it in the work stand, check the gears were still working properly, the brakes were still snug, everything that needed. The discs weren't rubbing, so like there was as minimum friction as possible. Everything was like just mint and ready to go again.
I have enough trouble not getting my disc to rub at the best of times.
Well, that's yeah, that is true. But putting some new stuff on at the beginning of the challenge helped with that. You're right. Once stuff wears in and beds a bit, and yeah, if you mountain bike a lot, you do get to the stage where there's a certain wearing components that you just live with. But this was for me. This was all about just keeping everything perfect for those 4 weeks. So she came off Ben Cruachan, and she used a mountain bike for that. Quite a lot of that road coming down is tarmac, but it was steep downhill, so it was fine, plain sailing. And then when she got to the bottom of that access road, she transitioned onto the road bike. Anyway, coming down Ben Cruachan, she started complaining that her back brake was going all the way to the handlebar, and basically wasn't working properly, which is obviously quite worrying. But given that we were on a tarmac road, it's not quite so crucial. The front brake was adequate to get her to the bottom of that. But then we had a road bike liaison, and she was going to the next mountain at the top of Loch Fyne and Ben Vui, and I was hoping to try and sort it out, but basically this quite often happened in the road bike liaisons. She was quick enough that I had very little spare time. So by the time I packed up from the van for her and her friend leaving and then driven, I'd overtaken them on the drive, got to the next bit, started getting the stuff out for them to transition to the hill, started thinking about fixing her bike, and then they were there. So I was like, damn it, still fix the bike. And it was a big mountain bike access in and out, that one, and a potential for a big, long mountain bike ride out. So I let them set off. And basically I thought, right, I'm going to have to try and do it in the bit between when she gets off the mountain bike, goes on foot up and down, gets back to where the mountain bike is, and then wants to ride it out. That's my window to try and bleed those brakes.
How long did you have, man? How long did you have?
I think maybe about an hour.
Okie doke.
I can't specifically remember. I'd have to look at it. But
that's in the realm of acceptability, but the pressure is on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it was far enough away I couldn't dip in and out the van, so I had to like go through the toolbox, get everything, make sure I had all the different right bleeding components, make sure I had some spare pads in case I messed those pads up. Big bottle of hydraulic oil, didn't know how much I was going to use, so just took the lot. Big bottle of alcohol spray to wipe up any spillages, because contamination is quite a big risk when you're bleeding brakes. You have to make sure that hydraulic oil is completely gone, especially she's going to be mountain biking down a big steep track. So popped all that stuff into a rucksack. Then also the point where she rode uphill to wasn't as far as where she wanted the bike for coming downhill. So I would ride up on my e-bike with the rucksack with all the stuff in it, find the bike where she'd left it, hook up the towing system. She had then transitioned onto foot with the hill runners, then tow her mountain bike up to where she was going to ride it out from, then bleed it. And I ended up having to do it twice because they were so bad. The oil had clearly never been changed. I mean, the oil that came out was absolutely black.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the right problem. And yeah, and it felt good, but I just wasn't sure, until she rode it. I didn't know 100% sure. I took it for a little ride, obviously, but it was just that, will it last now? And it turned out to actually be the steepest and longest downhill mountain bike leg that she had in the whole trip. So it's
and the brakes held up.
They did, yeah.
Hero of the day. There you go.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess perhaps Jamie still doesn't know sort of how proud of that I am that worked out. So she would have just known that her brakes weren't great. She told me about it, and that's the last that she probably would have thought about it. And then the next time she got on a mountain bike, her brakes worked perfectly. So
magic, obviously.
It's like when you absolutely nail a bin shot, but no one's there to see it, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly that. That's exactly what it's like.
So, I'm in awe of the challenge. I'm in awe of the logistics behind it and the mechanisms behind it and what she achieved. But we've now reached the most important part of the podcast, mate, where you give us a song to go on the Get Out in It playlist, something which you train to, use, inspire you, or just generally enjoy.
Or maybe got you through the Munroe challenge.
Yeah, or maybe got you through the Munroe challenge.
So I don't know. Am I allowed to do more than one, or it's really hard to pick one song, isn't it? Because
I mean,
it's really hard. Yeah,
you can float more than one, but only one will go on the list, and that'll be a decision we make.
Yeah, that's fine then. So if I was needing to get somewhere in the middle of the night, I was feeling tired, and I live a long way from my family. When I need to get home, I tend to drive down late at night. Something like Metallica, Enter Sandman would.
Yes, yes, mate.
What I would put on, and it's surprising you just get there. Also, like a bit of AC/DC, Highway to Hell, something like that.
Yeah, there you go.
If I was trying to pick something that maybe less people have heard of, I might pick Josh Ritter, Homecoming.
Oh, and that's great song. Love that song.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know it. So it's sort of more vibe.
Yeah, that's one of my go-to running songs. That is, I love running to that track.
So yeah, you picked from those three. They would have all featured in the Munroe challenge.
All right. Well, what I'll do this week is we'll pick an either the AC/DC or the Metallica is your choice, but I'll put the Josh Ritter Homecoming on as my choice this week because I think that song deserves a place on the playlist.
Oh, fantastic! Great, I'm glad you've heard it.
You're the first person to sneakily get 2 songs on our Spotify playlist. That's impressive.
Wow, thank you. I'm honoured.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming on and taking us through all that. It was really enjoyable.
Okay, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy.
All right.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. The debrief.
The emphasis was correct, I feel.
Okay.
The two, I mean, I was about to say it was almost like they'd experienced totally different things. But in reality, they had experienced totally different things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Jamie was doing her thing and Andy was doing his thing his way with his team of people that were there backing him up. Some amazing people in the background doing a huge amount of heavy lifting and work to help facilitate what he was doing. And so both have had extremely different experiences, but around the same ecosystem for the same goal. And like you say, it was really quite interesting listening to him explain that. And I loved it. Yeah, I loved it a lot.
And I don't think I really got the sense of the size of that project. Like when we were talking to Jamie, in my brain, I was like, Jamie was doing the main thing. And then there was Andy and Jenny and a few core people. And maybe like a handful of other people just kind of going up the mountains and helping out and stuff. So in my head, I thought it was probably tens of people. I didn't realize that it was actually more like, what did Andy say? About 170 odd people helping?
Yeah. And some extremely experienced professionals in their field. Whatever that field of expertise happened to be, they were extremely competent in that. And, because Jamie's comment when we were interviewing her was like, I had one of my friends was a physio, so I'd ask her if there were any questions. You didn't realize that, she had access to an army medic, for example, who turned up and did a field operation on her feet while she was doing the chat. These kind of details kind of got skimped on a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, probably not skimped on, but just kind of overlooked in the aftermath of such an event. But yeah, I think that's why it was really, really fun to talk to Andy, so that we could hear all of the minutiae of what was happening on a daily basis, on something that was planned to the nth degree, but knowing that anything could change at any time and they had to be ready for that and then redo a plan or prepare another plan. Oh my God. I just even imagining what it would be like to organize something like that makes my brain hurt.
Yeah, I'm also a bit intrigued by the pace calculator. Yeah, he said that someone was calculating the pace.
That was Jenny, huh?
Jenny was calculating the pace. Yeah, I think so. calculating the pace and recalculating it based on the conditions. Now the conditions may change based on the terrain. And, I love that. I'm well into that. That's right up my street.
Pace calculator and the bikes, no?
Yeah, exactly. And
it
the
was
bikes.
quite funny listening to Andy talking about the bikes and your excited little face listening to him. And I was like, I don't know what these words are. It's just sound.
Yes. But bikes are fun.
They are, and it's quite impressive that Andy knows quite so much detail about all these bikes. But it was an interesting story, and quite funny that one of his most proud moments went almost unnoticed.
Yes,
by Jamie.
If a tree falls in the woods but no one's there to see it, did it happen?
Yeah. So that was good fun. I'm glad we met Andy. Be like Andy. What an extraordinary project manager. And I'm quite excited to discover what their next adventure is going to be, because
So am I. But I mean, I am convinced there needs to be a book. Does there not need to be a book?
What, you're talking to a writer? There should always be a book.
There should always be a book. But while we're thinking about that, should we go and have a coffee?
Let's have a coffee. The weekly roast. Is that it?
So being that we're basically going back to Scotland to talk to Andy, I did what I always do, and I popped.
You popped up to a different country to find a relevant coffee.
I popped up to Scotland, and I found the Hinba Coffee Roasters. Now they are based on the west coast of Scotland, and they seasonally select and roast single origin specialty coffee in the pure Hebridean air, free from all pollutants. Their coffee is expertly selected and roasted in the Isle of Seil, Seil, S-E-I-L.
The Isle of Seil.
I think it's I don't know really how to pronounce
that. That's so cool.
But they say they believe it's essential to grow and roast in unpolluted air, as urban air is full of contaminating fine particles, soot, and highly reactive nitrogen dioxide, which impairs the taste. Hebridean air has ultra-low particulate matter and near zero NO2, which is nitrogen dioxide, for a much purer taste. And they're very sustainable. They work with producers that produce sustainable coffee, and they sound like banging people. And their coffee,
they do sound like banging
is
people.
Incredible. And I want to go to the Isle of Seil and experience some Hebridean air, which doesn't have any nitrogen dioxide in it.
Oh, I bet that's really awesome to run in.
Yes, and also roast coffee.
The air, not the coffee, obviously.
So I've knocked up a oat milk latte and an espresso.
Very tasty. Yeah, I'm digging it. It's doing quite going down quite nicely after my big long run.
Indeed.
Could do with a bit of cake. You skimped on the cake a little bit.
I always do.
The coffee is very, very good. What's the name of the roasters?
They are called Hinba Coffee Roasters.
Thanks, Hinba.
Hinba. Hinba Coffee
Hinba.
Roasters. And
thanks, Hinba, for this delicious cup of coffee.
As always, include a link to their website in the show notes. So anybody else who wants to pop up to Scotland can do exactly what I did. Should we be honest?
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest. So now we had quite a detailed rundown of where you are in your sitch at the moment. So I don't think we need to go and rehash any of that.
Okay.
But I think that let's be honest, for your particular angle this week has to be looking at what we're going to do going forward. Because now you've got.
I did a thing. I totally did a thing.
All right.
I did a silly thing. Do you want to hear what the silly thing I did?
Yeah. You obviously haven't told me this yet.
No. I saved it because I did the silly thing yesterday, and then I saved it so I could tell you today. I signed up for a midnight race
When?
Friday
Where?
next door.
Next door?
Yeah, in the village next door. Yeah.
Okay.
So it starts in Saint-Romain and
Okay.
then it climbs up to Montou
Okay.
and then it comes back down again, but it's in the middle of the night. It's pitch black.
Amazing. Assuming head torches are mandatory
Yes.
and
Yes.
you have a decent head torch, something
Yeah,
with
I think
many, many
so.
lumens.
Yeah, I've got one that's bright when I turn it on. It's fine. It will be fine.
Okay.
But yes, I signed up for that yesterday.
Well, that's
Uh,
exciting. Good of you to let your coach know. Hey?
I'm letting you know now.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is the distance?
Well, they have two races. They have a 10K and a 20K.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought because of my training schedule
Mm-hmm.
and also because I've never run at night before, I just signed up for the 10
Good idea.
because we all know that I can bang out a 10K quite easily.
That is
Um, I
proven. Where did you find this race?
I've known about this race for years and years and years because the parents of one of the students I teach does the organizing on the day, hands out all of the bibs and all of that kind of stuff. And he's always saying, "Why don't you ever run this nighttime race?" And I was like, "Because I'm scared of the dark."
Well, that's quite an exciting thing to have planned. I'm
Yeah.
quite enthused by that.
Yeah, so I thought that would be quite terrifying.
And so it
Hmm.
starts at midnight.
It starts at, well, it doesn't start at midnight. It starts at 9:30.
Okay, so it's a night. It's more of a late evening run.
It's a nighttime run, yeah. It starts at 9:30. I was looking at the stats yesterday, and well, 10K runners tend to be quite nippy. But there's 550 meters of climb on this 10K run. Um, so the average is around an hour for people to do it. The super fast people do it in like 45 minutes. But the last people were coming through around 1 hour and 40, 1 hour
Mm-hmm.
45. Um, and around here with elevation, I can do a 10K between 1 hour and 1 hour 10. But that's in broad daylight when I can see shit.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds very exciting. I'm pleased to hear that you're doing this because it'll
mm.
be very interesting little jaunt into the nighttime air. But I must say, running at night does make my ankle twitch somewhat.
Yeah, if there were any time that I would get injured,
Yeah, yeah.
it would be this race. But I think like it's very, very well organized. They have many marshals and
Good. Because
the paths are
having broken my ankle by running at night and banned myself from running at night ever again, unless it's in a race situation,
mm.
I fear for you. But it'll be exciting.
Yeah, it'd be quite cool. And I thought because there's still the potential that I might be doing the UTBV on my own, I thought it might be nice to do a few things leading up to it that are a little bit scary, so that when I am nips deep in the UTBV on my own and I'm going, fucking hell, I'm terrified, I can be like, nah, but you did that other scary thing and it was fine. Do you know what I mean?
That's good. It's a good way
Yeah.
to set out your stall before you find yourself in that environment and have something to rely on when you need to.
Yeah.
Um, I think. I mean, lurching from you've stolen your Let's Be On away from the future and into this race that you're doing. I was gonna talk about how we were gonna start loading your training up towards the UTPV, but I think focusing on this midnight race first will be interesting and important. We'll get that done, and then we're just going to start putting volume in with some much lighter running in the week to allow your
Hmm.
recovery. Your focus is going to be week time recovery with ticking over, and then some volume at the weekends.
Yeah, because Friday is a run day as well, and this Friday is hill runs
Yeah,
in my new training schedule, and this race is hill runs on a Friday. So
nailed
I
it,
fucking nailed it, coach.
nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
What about your let's be honest? That was my let's be honest, my confession honest. What's
well,
yours?
my let's be honest has got to be that despite the enthusiasm I've had for my physio saying I should aim for the UTBV and aim to try and get that 80K rundown done in October, the reality of that is starting to sink in as I increase my run distance as my injury recovers. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to do it, to be honest. not because I don't think I could get round, but because I just don't think it would be a positive, enjoyable experience for me at this point.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
had 2-3 months off running. My fitness is not where I want it to be. I wouldn't feel like me. I wouldn't enjoy it. I wouldn't be comfortable. And also I would have a much more positive impact on your race experience if I was there supporting than if I was there hobbling around an hour behind you.
Fair enough. But yeah, I think it's probably the most sensible decision, even
Yes.
though it's not the most fun decision.
It's not. It's not the.
No.
It's not the. I visualize myself emerging from the trees with the Last of the Mohicans soundtrack playing as I cross that line, having come 10th or something. It's not. It's not that sort of. It's not that dream ending. But there are many more races to come, and sometimes you just got to take a step back and just think about the short term, and then put a template in place to manage the long term. And I'll get there. I'll get there. But on the flip side of that, this morning I did a 50-minute run, which is the longest run I've done so far since I injured my hip. There was no pain. There was discomfort, but it wasn't painful enough to affect or stop or limit my run form at all. So I was running just in a bit of discomfort with no pain for 50 minutes, and it felt amazing. I felt like a runner again for the first time.
Well, that's cool. That's
so
good.
The comeback is finally real, despite the fact that it's probably unlikely I'll do that big race.
So I have a question.
Mm.
If you are not going to do the UTBV,
mm-hmm.
are you still with Daisy? Are you still going to work on a running plan as though you were, or are you going to change? Okay.
No, I'm gonna work on a running plan as though I am, so that I'm going up through those gears. I'm just not gonna do the event.
Right. Okay.
And then I'm probably gonna, once I've got my running back to a point where I can really run properly and I'm not really thinking about the injury anymore and I'm doing the maintenance work and the single leg weight work to keep it at bay, I'm thinking I'm going to choose a very early season half marathon next year and put all of my energy into a fast half marathon to try and get a bit of leg speed back. And
what's like sub 1:30?
Yeah, it'd be nice, hey? I've never quite done it, but I've almost been there in the past, and I'd like
Haven't
to finally...
you've done sub 140?
Yes, I have. Yeah, 139. 139.
Nice.
So
where's the fast half?
Bristol.
Nah, mate, because that's at the exact same time that we want to do the coast to coast 112 miler.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not sure. I need to be sensible in my training for a minute, because I broke my ankle in early 2022. And then I didn't get enough training in for the last year's a 56-kilometer ultra. I did that because I hadn't done enough training because I'd broken my ankle and I was recovering from that. I got really bad knees in that race. I then came out of that and I started training as hard as I could and got a hip injury because of the unbalance from the ankle. I need to give myself some time to really lay down a foundation of fitness before I start lurching into some unnecessary challenges for a moment. I just need to have some time to lay a foundation down.
But you're the one who keeps asking every single person that we meet, mate, you're going to do the north-south Devon 112 miler?
Yeah, I might just have to do it in 2025.
2020. Oh yeah, because it's 2024 next year.
Yeah. So right. I just need to lay down sort of real foundation of fitness for a minute. Get myself firing again, and then put myself under the cosh with some races.
Fair enough, but the Bristol half isn't really the beginning of the year, is it? It's the middle of the year. It's May. So
no, indeed. So I'll find something a bit earlier than that. I just hit myself in the face as I said that. I'll find something.
Tell you what, it's the end of the year, but it might be quite fun. I was looking at it yesterday. I think it's the end of October. Or it's a couple of weeks after the UTBV anyway. There's the Lyon half marathon.
That's a good shout.
Which could be quite nice.
That's a good shout, yeah. We'll see how we go. We'll see how we go. I wouldn't want to run a half marathon if I'm not at least as fit as I have been in the past.
But if I ran that Lyon half marathon 2 weeks after I've just done the UTBV, I don't think I'm going to be getting any PBs.
Well, you never know. Just have to recover, look after your nutrition, eat properly, and bounce into the race feeling good.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Shall we go and put some music on and forget about it?
Let's do it. Turn it up.
That'll probably do it. Who's going first?
Me.
Go on then.
I've got a left field track for the Spotify playlist today. It is a kind of, I don't even know the genre. It's kind of, I don't know, filmic, jazzy, fusiony. It's an interesting genre. It's by a musician, pianist and composer called Andrew J. Christie, and the tune is called Cold Caller. And I don't know when it was released. I know it was pre-COVID, 2015, 2016, something like that. Actually, I was there when the album launched. I went to the concert of the album launch, and it was
the album
brilliant.
On Spotify says it came out in 2017.
There you go. Yes. So I was there at the album launch, watched the quartet live do this album, and it's so cool. And this particular one, Cold Caller, it's got a kind of weird syncopated rhythm to it, and it's quite nice to run to, especially if you're kind of negotiating some technical downhills. It's quite good fun.
Quite the musician, eh?
Yeah, he's a really good musician. Yeah.
There you go. We'll add that to the playlist. So anyone who wants to listen to it, go and check it out. Now, everybody who listened to the interview we had earlier will know what I'm going to put on the playlist this week, because
yes,
it's a song I like a lot. And Andy was torn between a bit of AC/DC, a bit of Metallica, or a song called Homecoming by Josh Ritter off the 2005's album Sermon on the Rocks. Now, I love this song. It's very gentle, but quite uplifting. And when the intro, the particular plinkety-plonkety intro finishes and the actual main piano kicks in, it's quite the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, nice.
Very, very good. And a nice track to run to. It's not too imposing, but it's quite, what's the word?
Pleasant?
Pleasant, uplifting, stirring.
Stirring, okay.
Stirring
nice.
is the word I was looking for.
Sounds brilliant. Can't wait to hear it.
Both will be added to the playlist.
Nice.
I think that's about it from us, isn't it?
Totes. Yeah, I'm all done.
So if you want to find out more, head to www.getoutinit.events. There's loads of info on there, and you can sign up for the newsletter, download the personal development friend, and book a free consultation with us to discuss your health and fitness and a roadmap to get you where you want to be. Also, if you like the podcast, do us a favor, leave us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. It's really, really helpful, and does the algorithm the world of good. And I think we're done.
We're done. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for hitting the trails with us this week. We'll meet you back here next Monday for more news, more views, more nature.
All the links for our socials are in the show notes. Find and follow us on Facebook, Insta, YouTube and Twitter. You can subscribe to our newsletter from our website for all the latest updates and camp plans. You get a fun free gift when you sign up.
Leave a review on your podcast app. It's really easy and really helps us out.
And if you've got any friends who could do with getting out in it, then bring them along to next week's outdoor adventure. We'd love to have you all with us.
Catch you next week. Cheerio.